Well, hey friends, it's Sean here. I want to share with you my monthly investment tip, and today's a little different. As you can see, a little more casual, relaxed, so pull up a chair and hang out with me as I want to share with you a theme that I have seen over the last, I believe it's 125 investors that I've had the privilege of being able to help so far start in their real estate investing kind of ventures. And I've seen a theme. I've also seen the theme with real estate agents over the last 11 years of being in this career. I've seen something is consistent about those who are successful versus those who are not successful. And here it is. Here is the key in the theme is those who are successful consistently invest money in themselves. All right, that is a key. They invest real hard-earned money into themselves. Now, I think 10 years ago, when I probably started hearing people talk about this, I kind of thought that whole concept was maybe a little selfish. Like, why do you just invest in yourself? Are you just looking kind of go get a manicure, pedicure, or something? And that's not at all what investing in yourself looks like. Investing in yourself for returns, right? A good investment is an investment that you see a good positive return on that investment. And I want to share with you what some of those returns can look like and should look like when you invest in yourself so that you can create a plan and strategy. I think just going on this next month or this summer or this rest of this year, that you have a plan to invest real money into yourself with expected returns. So I want to share with you some just stats and a couple little stories just about what I've experienced. But really my goal is to motivate you and to encourage you to actually spend real hard-earned money that you probably could use other places as well, but to spend it on yourself and investing in yourself so that you have incredible returns. So one of the first places that I think about in regards to investing real money in yourself is going to be with a lot of just personal development, professional development trainings. You kind of heard about coaches nowadays, right? So a lot of people have businesses to be mentors and coaches, and you kind of think, is that a fad? Is that a thing? Well, reality is I don't really care what it is. The question is it giving a high return on that investment? In talking kind of to folks in this coaching world, typically the returns that you should expect to see if you hire a coach or a mentor is about 7 times what you spend. And sometimes people talk about 50 times more than you spend or plus, okay? So 7 to 50 times what you spend on a coach is what you should see on a financial return. And I was thinking about my first investor coach that I hired. My first investor coach, I paid him $5,000 for, I think it was 6 months of training or just kind of mentoring. And at that point, well, I mean, that's still a lot of money now, but I remember that like, whoa, cutting a check for $5,000 it hurt. Like it really hurt. And I remember the outcome of just kind of being a mentor under him. Really, the only thing I remember learning was marketing. He just said, hey, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you have to master the art of marketing. And so I just started applying some of the marketing strategies, and I got my first flip with him. And I remember getting that deal, and I closed on the flip. I had enough equity in the home to keep it. And so today, at the moment, I still have that rental property actually. And so that $5,000, that one-time $5,000, bought me $70,000 of equity at the moment. And I get $200 a month cash flow on that one property. And I did the math, and that was a 1,400% return. Come on, y'all. 1,400% return on that $5,000 that is there over these last 2 years. So yeah, hiring a coach, hiring a mentor is a good investment in yourself as long as you see the returns. So you want to at minimum see 7 to 10 times return on what you actually spend. And also when you think about conferences, so you hear people go to all kinds of conferences, and I think you can waste money if you just simply go to a conference and go to all of the little after parties, okay? And you're just going for the social. Call that a vacation. That's not an investment. But if you want to go to these conferences as an investment in yourself, then you want to make sure you have a return. And we always say that you want to be able to have a plan to get a 10 times return on the money that you put into that conference. So for example, maybe a standard conference to fly and to get a hotel and do the conference might be like $2,000 that you spend to go to this conference. Well, you should have an expectation that that one conference will make you $20,000. Right? So you're investing in yourself to go to that conference to make that 10 times return. So you have to go into the conference with a plan, right? I'm at fault. I have gone to conferences and just kind of gone to learn. I've gone to learn and absorb, and I haven't thought always about how do I make sure that I turn this investment into a high return. And I learned, and I'm sure it was helpful, but it wasn't as intentional as it is now. And so I want to encourage you, invest in conferences that will support your goals because you should see a 10% return on that investment. I remember one real estate agent that talked about the fact that he would go to conferences and he would always go specifically to learn one thing that he could immediately apply to go get this return. And his whole philosophy was he went to the real estate conference until he got the one nugget. And when he got the one nugget, he literally left. He flew home. I remember, this week conference, he went, he got the nugget he needed the first day, and he left. And he went back home because he wanted to go apply it. Because the reality is you go to these conferences and you learn so much. You learn so much information that sometimes you don't know what to apply. And the reality is he just didn't want to do that. He said, I want to get the one nugget and immediately apply it. And that's how he has seen his investment 10, 20, 30 times what he's actually invested in these conferences. So this is why I think a lot of corporations, well, I know this is why corporations and firms, they spend money on training, quality training of their employees. I think the last statistic that I read was the average company or firm that spends about $1,500 per employee on training versus like a low budget of $125 per employee, they get 25% return on higher profits as a company. So the more they put into training, they're getting higher profits. So we know this makes sense. So let's take this and actually be willing to spend our own money in the right places to have this kind of high return. The other place that I think is not as much money that you're investing, but this is where you invest more time, and that's in reading. That is an investment, right, in time. And so I printed this out because I just thought this was fascinating. When you think about investing into reading, is people who read 7 or more books per year are more than 122% more likely to be millionaires, as opposed to those who never read or only read 1 or 2 or 3 books. So here's a measurable statistic that if you read 7 or more books per year, you have 122% more chance to hit some of your big financial goals. So that's fascinating. And then you probably have heard these. I think I've heard these before. Warren Buffett, he spends 5 to 6 hours a day reading 5 different newspapers and combs through 500 pages of financial documents. Woo! Bill Gates reads a new book every week. So he accomplishes 50 books in a year, because I guess he takes a couple weeks off. And then Mark Cuban reads for 3 hours every day to maintain his competitive edge. And so, I just think a lot of people say they're not readers. And I get it. I'm not a reader. Like, I don't just look forward to just sitting down and reading. It takes work, actually, to just sit down. I'm a fast motor, kind of guy. I want to get out and move and move and move. sometimes sitting down and reading it is hard for me, though it's intentional because it's an investment of time. Like I'm intentionally investing that time knowing that statistically I'm going to see a return on this investment. I want to be 122% more likely to be able to hit financial goals than not. So let me make sure that I invest my time into reading. And I think a lot of times, reasons why people don't invest either time into reading and especially money into coaches or mentors or conferences is, I think either one, they're very unclear in regards to what their goals are. So they don't want to spend money in investing in something to learn something if they don't really know if they're committed to it. And I think it's a good question to ask. But I think the other thing is just thinking with the scarcity mindset, feeling scared, not wanting to spend the money, and maybe thinking that, oh, those people who spend money on conferences, it's just because they have a lot of money. And that is not the case. Not the case. People who invest this money, it's a step of faith to say, all right, let me act upon it so that I see this 7 to 10 times return. So I didn't just encourage you to kind of get after it, y'all. And a note that I kind of wrote here was, and then I'll finish here because I know this is a long-winded, kind of fireside chat. But I want to encourage you to think through your education plan for the year. Or maybe the next summer, or this summer, right? The next 3 months, or maybe just the rest of this year. What is your education plan? And something that I do is I think through the priorities of my life. I think through God, I think through family, I think through church, I think through job, health, wealth, and also fun. And I think through each one of those priorities and I say, what education do I need in each one of these priorities this coming year? What conferences do I need to attend? I can't attend a conference on every single one of those or I'll never be home, right? But I have to prioritize depending upon the year. What conferences am I going to go to? What books am I going to read? What coaches am I going to have? What mentors am I going to have? What groups am I going to have? And make a plan so that you are truly investing your money and your time into each one of these priorities of your life. So let me ask you, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? If not, take a moment, just sit down and think through your priorities and write down what is an educational plan that is investing in yourself and put down a dollar amount of what is the return on investment you're expecting. So if it's time in reading, is it 122% more likely than those around you to succeed? Is it financial if it's going to be specifically towards 7 to 10%, or not 7 to 10%, 7 to 10 times return on the money that you invest? Put that goal down, and that's going to help you be intentional with going into those classes or mentorships or coaches or conferences, and make sure you have a plan to earn these high returns, because statistically, they are going to earn higher returns than you will get in the stock market. So I hope this was helpful and valuable for you. Another investment you can do is buy me coffee. All right, we can just go chat, we can hang out, and we can talk about your goals and my goals and see if we can help support one another. Let me know if I can serve you. God bless.